I'm Si Hong Peng, and I'm a host for your Minepreneur podcast show, on which I interview successful entrepreneurs to explore their entrepreneurial journey, their emotional roller coasters, and how they overcome some of the obstacles in their building their successful business. And hopefully, I can inspire more people to think like an entrepreneur, whether they're in corporate Canada or in looking to start their own adventure. So joining me today is a very well accomplished businessman, Alex Cervinka. So Alex's vision turned Newtrax into the world leader in digital safety and productivity systems for underground hard rock mines. Alex has been developing Internet of Things solutions since 2001 with a focus on optimizing mine operations for the past 10 years. He has an extensive understanding of the global mining industry and has personally visited hundreds of underground mines on all continents. His vision to eliminate the digital divide between open pits and underground operations to improve safety and productivity by empowering the mine's management teams with real-time data about the environment, people, and the machines. Under his leadership, Newtrax has deployed systems in 100 plus mines around the world, and the company is growing really fast. So welcome, Alex. I'll let you introduce to our audience.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Alex Cervinka. I'm the founder and CEO of Newtrax. I think your intro was a good summary, I guess, of where we stand today. I mean, I'd just clarify that vision where over the past few years, we've kind of clarified, Newtrax's role in the ecosystem of technology suppliers to the mining industry, where although everything you said there is true, nowadays we really are more specific on our vision, where our goal is to be the world leader in wireless IoT for underground hard rock mines and the preferred source of big data for AI. So it's kind of like, as we learned about the entire ecosystem of suppliers, and it was important for us to, be number one in whatever we did, we kind of carved out that role for the company.
Perfect. That's a very niche market right now in the mining business. So recently, Newtrax was acquired by Sandvik, one of the largest mining equipment manufacturers in the world. How much did you sell it for?
Well, that's confidential information, unfortunately, but I think it was a perfect fit. Quite frankly, they're really focused on underground hard rock mines, and 100% of our portfolio was of interest to them. So it was a good transaction, I think, for both parties, and I'm personally very happy. So are all the other stakeholders involved.
So why do you think they eyed on Newtrax? Why Sandvik was so interested in Newtrax?
Well, like us, they believe that the industry is on the cusp of, really the mining technology golden age. So although the mining industry, and by the way, all my comments are more specific to underground hard rock. Yeah. So when I talk about the mining industry, I'm actually talking about underground hard rock mines. Yeah. Okay, mechanized mainly. And so we believe that the industry is, in the early adopter phase when it comes to digitalization, automation, robotics, and all that kind of stuff. And as you pointed out, Newtrax has had some spectacular growth these past few years, and this is really the partnership with Sandvik is the what we believe the best way to continue and succeed at a high growth rate for the next few years. Sandvik, they also acquired Artisan vehicles in terms of evolving their offering to include more electric equipment. And in the case of Newtrax, it's to complete the portfolio of automation solutions they have. So now together, we really have what we believe is the most comprehensive portfolio of solutions for digitalization and process optimization.
Excellent. That's I think there is a perfect fit in there. I recently made a visit to Sandvik factory in Finland, and I can see they're pushing really hard on digitalization and utilizing data to provide values to our clients. So, and why do you sell? Because Newtrax has been growing really fast. According to Deloitte's reports, you are one of the 2018 Technology Fast 500 companies. As a matter of fact, you were ranked at 166 in North America. And you grew 600% between 2014 and 2017. So apparently, Newtrax was on a very healthy trajectory in terms of growth. Why did you decide to sell?
Well, listen, there's personal reasons, but like one of the things that's personal to me, and I was explaining this to some people. When I was a younger boy, I was a lifeguard, and one of my nightmares was to have a kid drown on my watch. Okay, because I know people, actually I know one person that someone drowned on their watch, and it just ruins your life, right? I mean, you personally feel, you never forgive yourself for that kind of stuff. And as the Newtrax has grown quickly, and also, by the way, something of interest, Sandvik, is that we are global, so we're doing projects all over the place, good fit for them. Right. But it's my number one responsibility is to take care of our employees and make sure that we have the world-class standards in terms of safety and security when they go to sites, travel all over the place. And quite frankly, I think that this deal with Sandvik enabling us to copy paste a lot of their best practices and the EHS in general is going to give me a peace of mind. So I'd say that's a big plus from my personal perspective. And then the way I summarize it is that's also due to, I guess, early experiences as an entrepreneur. I know how it's a lot more fun to be number one. Okay. And I think right now we've been number one as in the early market in wireless IoT and all this, big data and applying ML and all that stuff. But if we want to remain number one, as the landscape is becoming increasingly competitive and the market is really, the market itself, we believe, is just growing very fast. This is the way to stay number one.
Yeah, to scale fast.
Okay. Scale fast, but remain number one.
Okay, I hear you. That makes perfect sense. And so before we get into our growth story, let's talk about the birth of Newtrax. So when did you start Newtrax? 2002?
Well, this company was founded in 2008.
Right, okay. July 21st, 2008?
Yeah, I believe that's it. To be quite frank, I don't remember.
I think
exactly.
Legally that's the dates of incorporation.
But prior to that, there was a few failed business plans and companies. So I guess it's certainly not been an easy journey for me since graduated in 2001 from McGill University in electrical engineering.
Right.
But so in 2008, we started to build a company focused on the mining industry.
Right.
And it's funny because it started with the global financial crisis. Perfect so initially, timing. It really sounded like a bad move, but we persisted, and fortunately, it bounced back relatively fast. There was a lot of we tried different both business models, different types of solutions, all that stuff. So I mean, and you mentioned in your introduction that I personally visited, over the years, ultimately hundreds of mines, making sure we better understood the market. Bottom line, what did people want? What were the constraints? Why did all it's a cemetery of failed technology projects, right? Underground hard rock mines.
Right.
So trying to learn from past, failed digitalization attempts, and then really, I'd say it really took off 5 years ago when Jollymont, which is our private equity investor, injected funds. And you mentioned the importance of being mentored. Well, so they have quite a team that helped us optimize our business plan and execute on achieving total global domination of our target niche market.
Perfect. That's before we jump into that, I want to explore a little bit about your prior experience with Newtrax. So you mentioned there were some failed experiences when it comes to entrepreneurial journey. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, I mean, when I was at university, my first business plan was in 1999. And basically, it was a tracking system for children. So to enable parents to keep an eye on their kids when they leave home.
Right.
And it was all back then, it was still a challenge to keep tracking kids indoors.
Right.
So
because in 1999, GPS was fairly young. It was 3 years old.
Yeah. So the trend back then was, with the cell phones becoming increasingly popular.
Right.
There was this new regulation in the U.S. called E911 that were forcing cellular network operators to enhance their networks to locate their subscribers.
I see.
Because people were calling from cell phones saying, "I'm dying, please come and help." And the 911, well, where are you? So there was all these new technologies being deployed to be able to locate people in indoor environments.
Right.
And that was kind of like our business plan was leveraging these kinds of technologies to have continuous tracking of kids.
So your clients are the carriers or the parents?
No, that was to consumers, a business to consumer business model. But the point is that never took off. But I mean, we had a business plan, went around, tried to raise money to execute that business plan. And one of the feedback we had at that point was that there was not a fit between the team. So we were a bunch of electrical engineers and the opportunity, which people said, that's a great idea, but it's not a technical challenge. It's really a marketing challenge.
Right.
And you guys are a bunch of engineers. So there's not a match between your venture and the team you're bringing at the table.
Gotcha.
We never managed to raise any funding. And then, so it's, then we ended up doing a whole bunch of projects in the transport industry, but it was always projects. It's never things that actually took off.
Right.
So, and at some point, obviously whoever had injected money got fed up, pulled the plug. And so you need to
that was between 2001 and 2008. In 7 years, you were just trying different things as a projects, as a hobby.
Multiple failures, and that's it. But
so what did you learn from that experience, the 7-year?
Never ever give up. That's it. So keep going.
Lesson number one. Never give up.
I think perseverance is maybe the only quality I'll give myself. So despite all the setbacks and as I mentioned, investors pulling the plug or whatever on these first things.
So you got funding from investors even early on. So that's probably one of the learnings you got from that too. So how to raise fund.
Yes. So going out there, seeing what what was required to attract investors. But actually, one thing I would say to whoever wants to go in business is you better be good in sales.
Right.
So whatever idea you have, raising funding is an option, but the best source of funding is sales.
Right. Totally agreed. So it sounds like you had intrinsic interest in business even while you were in university. So it didn't come to you as a surprise when you look back at your business journey that you actually started a business. So what drew you to mining? Because I took a snapshot of your website back in 2008. And on the website, you listed your applications of your two technologies. We're going to talk about that. Border security, battlefield, and then some other supply chain applications. And one of them is underground mining applications. So what kind of moved you to shift your focus to mining?
Well, at some point,
after all
we came
failed experiences.
At some point, we came to the conclusion that the whole principle that the only viable business strategy for a small high-tech business-to-business company is to pick one niche market and then have a credible business plan to dominate that niche globally.
Right.
And effectively, all of that means is that as a small company, you have limited amount of resources, and your best bet is to focus all those resources on one point to
Right.
break in.
Right.
And after I guess just overall market analysis, we felt that was the industry that we should be focusing on.
Okay, I see. So you did your market research and found out that
Well, you got limited. It's not like we hired PricewaterhouseCoopers or Deloitte to do a market analysis.
Right, right.
But with whatever means we had, that's the conclusion we came to.
Now, did you get married before 2008?
No, I got married in 2009.
Oh, 2009. Wow. Okay. I was wondering if you were married and you were not making profits in 7 years, how would your wife say about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's, listen, you find always a way to survive, right?
Right, right. So in 2008, you registered 2 companies. One is called Newtrax Inc. and one is called Newtrax Holdings Inc. Why 2 corporates?
Why? I mean, quite frankly, it's our main shareholder that decided to structure it that way. So I think there are some legal benefits, but quite frankly, anybody that wants to start a business, they obviously need to hire a lawyer and make sure that the legal structure is appropriate. And if it's any sort of manufacturing business where you have IP, you probably want to have an incorporated company. It's not. It depends what you want to do. But
good point. Yeah. So even after you failed those business experiences, there were still investors that were sticking with you to invest when you started.
Well, I mean, if you go to Silicon Valley and any environment in which there's a entrepreneurial culture, failure is not necessarily frowned upon. It can be that so you just learned a very expensive lesson, and I can give you a second chance, or that kind of stuff. So it's not people watch you, and ultimately they place their bets on people as opposed to companies.
That's great to know, because I think that's a fundamental mindset shift towards failures, even in corporate environment. I think we should encourage that kind of mindset to encourage people to make mistakes and celebrate mistakes, and see what we can come up with the lessons learned. That's a great point. So you had one partner when you founded the company, or how many partners did you have?
So the Robert Brouillette is our main shareholder, and the co-founder was Vincent Cassis.
Oh, okay, I see. So 3 co-founders.
Yeah,
including
basically.
You. Right.
And actually, I think there may have been a 4th, that was Jean-Pierre Gibault, that was bought back by Robert Brouillette.
Oh, okay, I see. What is the equity division like? Do you hold the majority, or?
No. I mean, we had, the people to put in money to keep growing the business.
Okay, I see. Yeah. And what was your role back then when you founded the company in 2008?
Well, I mean, the role was to lead the growth of the business, right? So, I mean, as president of the company, it's a pretty traditional role for a president to, take the reins and make sure the business, number one, survives and then thrives.
Okay, excellent. So you apparently got to go to your customers and sell your products. What were you selling back then?
Well, it's it always comes down to the expertise that we developed over the years was always related to wireless sensor networks.
Right.
So it's monitoring systems, right?
Okay.
Now the buzzword is digitalization, but it used to be called wireless sensor networks.
Okay. Yeah, that's your mesh ad hoc network nodes, right?
Yeah, that's part of our solution. Yeah.
Okay. And were you always interested in selling or good at the selling, or you got to work out of your comfort zone to face a client and say, hey, we have a solution that you should try out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that most engineers don't. It's not always their comfort zone to sell.
Right.
But for me, in 2011 or 2012 is when we were selected by a program here in Quebec called Croissance Québec Techno. They identify a few high potential, high tech companies, and we end up being coached, among other things, by the MIT and all that.
Oh, I see.
And we connected with one of the persons at the MIT Entrepreneurship Development Program.
Who's on your board right now? Right.
Well, advisor, shareholder,
advisor.
But Ken Morse.
Yeah. Yes.
That really coached both me and our sales team on sales, complex sales.
Right.
And that was really when we talk about from the moment where things started to take off,
right?
You're talking about mentors and all that. I mean, these are people that certainly helped us a lot to grow and sharpen our skills in terms of sales.
So what are some of the lessons that you can probably share from that experience with our audience in terms of a sales technique, or even just the emotional? How do you walk out of your comfort zone? Because typically technical personnel are, like you said, not feeling comfortable.
Well, quite frankly, I would say that if you can't sell, don't even try to start a business. So if you want to start a business, make sure that you gotta.
Okay.
Listen, selling. If there's no sales, there's no business.
Totally understood. What was your elevator pitch back then? Give us a 30-second pitch.
Well, I mean, it's always been the same thing, where ultimately we have a system that enables you to see what's happening in real time in your mind.
Right.
So, today managers knew that, they're blind, and we help them to see.
Okay, excellent. That's a great selling proposition. I guess my question is that with that contract or upcoming mining clients, how did you evolve your team? Because when you founded only 4 people, but to deliver a big project like that, you got to develop a team. What were you looking for when you expanded your team? What are some of the qualifications or traits, or what are some of the things that you are looking for?
Well, I mean, the truth is that there was a lot of stumbling along, right? So it's not like, from day one, you got a very clear vision. I'd say the most difficult, HR team growing problem we had is initially I was leading all the sales,
right?
But that's not scalable. So
True.
How do you grow a sales team? And as you grow internationally, you need to have people that are remote, that you trust, that are competent. So like in our case, we split the world in 6, right? Canada, USA, Latin America, Europe and Middle East, Africa, the former Soviet countries, and Asia Pacific. And in each one of those regions, you needed to identify and recruit a strong leader that could lead sales and lead the building of a regional team.
Right.
And finding and enlisting those people was the most difficult team building challenge. But then again, it was really once our Australian investor came in that they helped us find the first one for Asia Pacific. And then when you start, because there was a lot of like failed sales hiring, let's say. But once you start gaining traction in attracting good people, then it snowballs because they know other good people.
Right.
And, it's all like, 1 or 2
good
persons helps you attract more and more. And then suddenly, like today, we got a real, A team. So.
Yeah, that's excellent. Again, that reinforces the 60-degree theory. So if you hire a good person, then within 6 degrees, there's another good person that you could look at. Okay. So even from early on, you guys focused really on the design of your marketing presence, like the image you want to project to the market. I was looking at some of your latest designs by Polygraph Studio. It
Mm-hmm.
looks stunning. So, did you always have this mindset of creating this stunning image of Newtrax to your clients or to the public?
No, I mean, I guess it's about 4 years ago now. We recruited, our marketing manager, uh, Cynthia, that is really the one that drove a major upgrade to our corporate brand, and then everything around it. So, but that's why I'm glad you say that. Even before, we were pretty good. But personally, I feel that we're an order of magnitude. We really switched gears about 4 years ago.
Very good job,
Yeah,
Cynthia.
yeah,
That's excellent.
yeah.
And so then you laser focused on mining clients. How did you approach them?
How did we approach them? Um, you know, it was a lot of cold calling, quite frankly. So,
Oh, okay.
you talk about being out of your comfort zone when it comes to sales.
Right.
So it's very easy. You just need to get used to being rejected. And
Okay,
as long as you're good, you don't take it personal, and you just call around, and you go to different events, and you try to get early traction. And
that's cool. That's good to know. Because a lot of people were, when they started out, they were really afraid of rejections, afraid of no from their clients. It's good to know from you that it's okay. Totally.
It's not more complicated than that. Get used to rejection. If you can't take the heat, get off the seat.
And how did you differentiate your system from some of your competitors even back then? Because there's Isaac for tracking or telemetry, and then there's also a mine radio system, I think, that were doing some collision avoidance or proximity detection. So how did you differentiate Newtrax from your competition?
Well, I think in the in the early days, customers were not happy with whatever was in the marketplace. I mentioned the fact that it's at least our niche of underground hard rock was a real cemetery of failed projects. So as soon as you come with a new approach, and this is why I believe that the market is actually quite innovative, is that despite failures, they keep trying. Right, which is in my mind, it's a very innovative mindset that you don't quit. You keep trying to fix things, and we found the people in the mining industry relatively friendly and willing to try. So,
okay, excellent. That's good. And so, who was your first major mining client that you closed?
The first major client that we closed really Fresnillo in Mexico.
In Mexico.
Yeah. So there's an expression in French qu'on n'est jamais prophète dans son pays, which basically means that in your own country, you're rarely perceived as to be quite frank, I don't know how to translate it.
Number one,
whoever speaks French and listens to this will understand what it means.
I wish I could know a little bit more.
But and I think for all the Canadian-based suppliers to the mining industry benefit globally from there's a lot of great mining technology companies that stemmed out of Canada.
Right.
So when you're just another one, you benefit from the good reputation of others. Right. And we certainly, benefited from that as well.
How did you feel when you actually closed the first major deal in Mexico?
Well, of course, I mean, you feel great. I guess now it's funny because now you close $1 million sales, and it's like it barely makes the internal news. But, in these early days, even $100,000 PO, you're like really excited.
Wow,
I think now everybody's waiting for the $10 million PO, and I guess that's
yeah, that's a very interesting point, because I do some stock research and do some stock trading. Exactly the same emotional journey. At the beginning, you made $200. Yeah, I made $200, and then later, like you made $2,000. Just
Yeah, it's addictive.
$2,000.
That's why you
Yeah,
want to make more and more all the time.
exactly, until you reach the new levels.
Uh-huh.
So, when did your business really start to take off after the first Mexican
Mhm.
client?
Well, the tipping point, if you want, I really feel was when again this private equity investor came in 2014.
2014.
That we kind of switched gears.
Okay, so walk us through how that helped your growth. Is it
Well, you mentioned earlier
or
the importance of being mentored, and also just having professional investors kind of changes the way you manage the business.
So how did you approach those professional investors and convince them that this is a good idea or business to invest in?
Well, I don't know about investors in general, but again, in my personal case, and I'm sure if you were to ask, Jollymont and this as well, they ultimately invest in people.
Okay.
So yes, there's there needs to be a half decent business plan that kind of illustrates that you're a reasonably intelligent person. But other than that, they have a kind of profile of the people that they believe will succeed.
Okay, excellent. So basically have that personal connection with them to let them realize the potential of the...
Well, there's the entrepreneur and then there's the team. So, I mean, to be clear, it's not like if you're a one-man band and, you go see them, it's maybe not, probably not good enough, but it's both the leader, the team, the fact that you're at the right place at the right time. Timing is important. So they have their own kind of like analysis of where the industry is going.
Right.
And, they place their bets.
Right. Okay. I guess they were really sold on your vision of a digital mining solution empire. Mm-hmm. So what were some of the metrics that you measured yourself when you say that's when the tipping point happened and it really took off? What are some... Can you give us a sense of size or numbers?
In terms of
whether market or sales revenue or team members, give us a sense of what do you mean when you say that's really when the company experienced that tipping point?
I'll put it this way: if you look at that, right, being on the Deloitte Fast 50 in Canada, 166 in North America. Well, that's effectively the period that started with the Jollymont investment. I would say that when you have professional investors that come in, they also expect you to achieve high growth rates. But ultimately, I think it's proven that people that have high aspirations do better. So they certainly help us have high targets. But ultimately, we surprised ourselves in many cases. And although the targets may seem ambitious, in some cases we multiple times actually achieve those. So.
Right. Did you feel stressed when actually got money from the investors and they actually set the seemingly high targets? Did you feel pressured?
Not, I honestly, I felt better surrounded. I felt the team was stronger with these guys. They brought credibility.
Right.
They brought contacts. So I'd say my confidence was higher. There's always been pressure. I think I have a very high level of tolerance for pressure and risk.
I think that was probably built on your failed experience before. Mm-hmm. So just like we talked about, emotional tolerance was much higher. Okay.
Yes.
That's a good point. Was that about the time you also acquired Isaac? Did you acquire Isaac?
Isaac was about 2.5 years later. So towards the Q4 of 2016.
Oh, okay. Because they are...
And it's, to be clear, it's not all of Isaac, it's the mining division of Isaac.
Oh,
so okay, Isaac continues to exist, focused on the highway trucking industry. We basically absorbed all the mining related activities. but they were, they've been a partner of us for a long time before that. So it was a easy fit. Yeah.
So why acquisition? Why not developing your own solution? Because you apparently when you started, you had a solution similar to telemetry collection.
Well, telemetry, there's a spectrum.
Yeah.
So we were at the low end of the spectrum.
Oh, okay.
And
I
Isaac is on the high end.
Okay.
So, it's one thing to know if your ignition is on or off. It's something else to, have access to all the OEM sensors.
Right. Okay, because they worked a lot with different OEMs. And
yeah, it's like if we had, ignition and oil pressure or just basic stuff, like they have the whole enchilada. So like all the data you can potentially want on a machine, whether it's a drill, loader, truck, bolter. And I think, quite frankly, still today we're leaps and bounds ahead of the competition on that front.
Right. So did your advisors or investors actually help make the key decision to acquire Isaac?
Yeah, I mean, when you have these financial partners, you have the
experts in the field,
the elbow room to be more aggressive on whatever strategy makes business sense.
Right, and also with the injection of funding, you were financially more.
But you need to raise additional money to do acquisitions.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
So, but I guess it would be easier at that point because you were seeing great growth and you saw a fit. So, was it the easier process for you to raise the second round?
Well, it's always the same thing. The people give you a little bit of money and they see how well you manage. And if they like the way you manage, they'll give you more money.
Oh, okay.
And then, you're good, well, I'll give you more money. So, it's all about building a track record of...
So now I saw your website listed your board members and advisors. They have a wide, very impressive experience or expertise in legal, financial, public relations, and merger and acquisitions. So when did you realize you need these areas of advice or help?
Well, I've always tried.
Or you had that at the very beginning.
Yeah, I've always had a lot of, advisors or mentors from the the early days. So it's no, maybe that's something else I'll give myself, is that I don't think I'm a pretentious person. So I know I have a lot to learn, and so I've always kind of had several people coach me through all these ups and downs, I guess. Yeah.
Excellent. And then I guess the next pivotal moment in Newtrax development is now you are focusing on extracting the value of data. So when did you start to realize that that could be a demand by the market?
I would just nuance that, where we've been extracting value from data for a while using more analytics. Whereas now our focus is on, the way I'd summarize it is that in the past, our focus was on, the mine management is blind. We enable them to see what's happening in the present. And now with everything we're doing in AI, so machine learning, operational research, our goal is to enable the managers to see the future.
Right.
So if you know that machine's going to break in 2 weeks, well, change your plan now. So it's the difference between condition-based maintenance and predictive maintenance.
Right.
So now we're more investing in enabling predictive maintenance, whereas we've been doing condition-based maintenance for a while. Okay, we've been enabling mines to see when equipment starts to work, when the drill starts to work at the beginning of the shift, or when the workers get to an area, whatever. But then it's okay. Well, based on how things evolve during the shift, you can see that you will miss your blast.
Right.
So what are you going to do about it?
Right.
So it's extracting value from data is
right.
We've been doing that for a while. It's seeing the future to enable you to act now.
That's a great point. Actually, I was going to ask you about short interval control, but I think you touched on that. So How did you persuade mining companies to share data with you? And ultimately, you are probably going to use data from different operations to build your machine learning models and to provide insights. How did you persuade them?
Well, initially, to be quite frank, it was almost the mining companies pushing us to do that.
Oh, really?
That's, okay. And to be very clear, we number one, the mining companies own the data. We don't own the data. The mining companies own the data, and we in some part of strategic agreements with customers, we get a license to take a copy of data that's anonymized, and all the data security around that.
Okay.
So I mean, just to be clear, the customer always owns the data.
Right.
But I mean, there's a lot of value for them to have Newtrax play a role of a kind of central repository to create a global industry perspective. Because although they may have data about 20 pieces of equipment of a certain model, we may have samples from 400.
Right.
So we really have a unique perspective on the global mining industry.
Right.
Same thing with even one mining company might only have one block cave.
Right.
So in terms of having mines that have a similar
mining methods.
Yeah. Anyways, there's
So when did you learn that Sandvik was gonna acquire you?
Well, it's a bit like if I ask you when did you know that your wife was gonna marry you? So you met her, right? you at some point you say, hey, I like her, and then you dated. And then one day you said, you know what? I think it'd be good to spend the rest of our life together.
So there is a lengthy preceding process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before that. So how was it like when you learned on the day or on the night that the deal was going to close? Walk us through the emotions in your mind. Did you jump in the kitchen, or how were you feeling?
No. To be quite frank, it's been a gradual evolution. It's not like there was a moment.
Oh, okay.
So again, we just believe it's the right business move. The marketplace evolves, technology space evolves, and it's a bit like the Isaac acquisition was the right business move. Right now, that was the right business move to ensure we remain number one in that space. And for me, what's the most important is to remain number one.
Okay.
Because it's too painful to be number two or number three.
Number one is fun. To conclude, what are some of the lessons that you have drawn from the entire entrepreneurial journey that you can share with our audience?
Well, to revert back what we said is sales. If you want to start your business, you better sharpen your sales skills.
Right.
And sales is not bad. I mean, sales is just convincing people. If you got such a great idea, convince people to pay for it. And if you can't convince people to pay for it, you better burst your bubble early.
Right.
But then again, once your bubbles burst, well, maybe you'll have another great idea. Okay. And, keep going. And, good things in life don't come easy.
Right.
So, there'll be all sorts of problems, but
so sales,
keep going
and seek mentorship, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the quality of the team is, it's about the people, the people, you're surrounded with, both in terms of, more experienced, wise guys. But then there's just your management team, the people, you're with. I mentioned, it's in terms of marketing, right? So that certainly helped a lot. So but getting the right sales people on board, because as an entrepreneur, you can't be the only guy driving sales if you want to scale. So maybe I've got a distorted view because I'm an engineer, but I would say, fund your growth through sales would be my number one recommendation.
Perfect.
And raising funding is option B to grow faster.
And what is your sales revenue 2018?
That is public. That was in the press release. That was a little over 26 million Canadian.
26 million. Okay, excellent. So to wrap up our interview, this is my favorite part, Minepreneur Trivia. Downtown Toronto or downtown Montreal?
Downtown Montreal is my home.
Dominican Republic or Whistler, BC for vacation, or your favorite vacation place?
Oof. My favorite vacation place are national parks in Canada.
National parks, cool. PC or Mac?
I'm a Mac boy.
So who's going to win Stanley Cup this year?
You know what? I'm not sure. I really don't know, honestly.
Take a guess. Come on.
Capitals.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, I think that was very fun. That concludes our interview. And thanks very much, Alex.
My pleasure.